अनेकधा अनुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिः विषम विषधरः अनेकवक्त्रः सुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिः भोजग परिकरः प्रेतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः सवो व्यात् सित विमल तनुः योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। पातञ्जलमहाभाष्य चरक प्रतिसंस्कृतैः मनोवाक्कायदोषाणां हत्रेय हेपतये नमः। भाष्यकृत् सूत्रकृच्चापि निर्मलन्तं स्वरूपिणं ध्यातारं श्रीपतेर्नित्यं पतञ्जलिं नमाम्यहम्। प्रयत्न शैथिल्य अनंत समापतिभ्याम्। Namaste friends, we are in the second chapter, verse number 47, and last time we discussed about the definition of Asana, Sthiram, Sukham, Asanam, and in that sutra Patanjali talks about the dual qualities of stability and comfort, Sthiram and Sukham, that we must have, we must achieve in order for something to be called as an asana, and this has to be in the domain of the body, the breath, as well as our emotional situation as well. Now we come to the next sutra, Prayatna Shithila Ananta Samapattibhyam. Patanjali is a very generous person because he's not just telling us what we should have in asana practice, he's also telling us how we can achieve it. And that is where the Sutra 247 is coming. Prayatna Shithila Ananta Samapattibhyam. Two things we have to put it into practice. One is Prayatna and the other is Ananta Samapatti. Now, in order for us to achieve Sthiram and Sukham, we need to do some effort, we need to put some practice. Now, that's where Patanjali defines the first part, Prayatna. Prayatna derives from the etymology Prakarshena Yatnam Prayatnam. Prakarshena means multiple things. First thing is that something very, very specific. Something very specific. We put this effort which is specific to each of us, which is specific to the context that each of us is in, because what is stable, what is comfortable is not necessarily the same for everybody. What some person may have some obstacles in one part of the body, somebody else may have some obstacles in another part of the body. So what practice will be stable for some can be unstable for others. What asanas can be comfortable for some can be uncomfortable for some others. And even for the same person at different times, these things can change. For example, in certain seasons like winter, when the body becomes more stiffer because of the cold weather, it is highly logical that maybe our body is less flexible because it's becoming more stiff. So even the same person, what is comfortable and stable in the summer need not be what is stable and comfortable in the winter time. And that's why there is this emphasis on appropriate effort, which basically means we have to contextualize practice. What is suitable for each person, we have to evaluate based on multiple parameters like the constitution of the person, the age of the person, the job of the person, the illnesses the person may have, the stage of life they're in, and the responsibilities they have, the energetic capacity. There are many factors like that has been presented. And that is why we need to honor the individual nature of each of us, which is also very dynamic, and that is what we need to do. That the important thing is the consequence. Patanjali is telling us a clue. How do we know it's the right effort? The right effort is when there is what is called Shithilyam, Prayatna, Shithilyam. Shithilyam is a very fascinating word that comes from the root, from the word Shithila. Shithila means something that is easy or fluid. It's the opposite of the word bandhana, which means restriction. So there are some restrictions in our system that will get reduced. It becomes more easy. That is Shaithilyam. But again, we always have to go back to the previous sutra as well, because how we know or where we have to work on the fluidity is not just at the body level. Unfortunately, this is the big problem with modern yoga, where everybody is pushing their body to break some stiffnesses, and they call it a release. Oh, your hips just released. And it hurts somewhere else. That's not really what Patanjali is talking about. The concept of Shithila is at the level of the body, at the level of the breath, at the level of our psychological and emotional state as well. There must not be any suffering or pain while doing the asana practice. We must not break our body. That's why Vyasa, the earliest commentator, when he talks about Prayatna, he is talking about Yena na angame jayo bhavati. That means the practice must be in such a way that the body must not suffer more. That is right effort. That is the right effort. So if we are pushing our body, forcing it into some positions, Sometimes either ourselves, or sometimes, as happens in many modern yoga classes, some other teachers jump on the students and push them. That's all incorrect, and it is not yoga at all, and it is not even asana practice. It's not the right effort that Patanjali has talked about. So there must be the sthiram and sukham, there must be the fluidity that comes with it, where resistances are removed. And resistances in the body, please remember, need not come from the body. Just think about it. If you are in the presence of, let's say, somebody you don't like or somebody you feel threatened by, your body becomes very stiff. So psychologically, your body can be influenced to become very stiff. Whereas when you are in the presence of somebody you feel safe with, your body relaxes. So your physical body changes based on psychological feelings as well. And that's why resistances need not be in the body. Resistances could be in our psychological structure, in our energetic structure, in our emotional structure, etc. And that's why we must look at it holistically. We must not think about asana as only a physical practice. And to assist this understanding, what Ācārya Krishnamacharya also says is that Prayatna can be interpreted also as Prakriti Purvaka Yatna. That means we all have what is called a constitution. In yoga and Ayurveda, we all believe very strongly that we all are defined by something called a constitution. Some of us, we are what is called the Vata type, which is influenced by the elements of of wind and space. Then we have the Pitta type people who are influenced by the element of fire, and Kapha type who are influenced by earth and water. Now these govern how our body will grow and function. Like normally the Vata constitution people will have a very skinny body, a very stiff body. Pitta dominant people will have a very muscular body, and Kapha dominant persons will have a very heavy bone structure and a body that is much larger than the others. So how the body will react to the same asana is different, because each body will be different, is differently constituted. It's not just in body function but also emotional function, how we respond to climate, to environment. All these are influenced also by the Prakriti. So Prayatna, appropriate effort, also means we must consider constitution of individuals when designing our practices of asanas. That's why it's very important to understand that in traditional yoga that is consistent with Patanjali, there's no standardization of asana practice. This is also unfortunately the problem with many modern yoga traditions, where they have a set of asanas that everybody is taught, and that's the only thing that they are practicing for the rest of their lives. This is also not consistent with Patanjali's definition of asana and how it must be practiced. Now, as we know, the effort must reduce the obstacles or resistances that we have. And what we are doing by reducing the obstacles or resistances is that we are bringing our body to the state of sthiram and sukham in these positions. Now the best way to do that is through breath. That's why one of the derivations of Prayatna can also be interpreted as Prana Sahita Yatna. That means effort that is consisting of the regulation of appropriate breathing. See, we must, asana is not a physical posture that you are achieving and then you ask your friend to take a picture and then put it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media so you get likes. In the time of Patanjali, there was no internet, there was nobody to appreciate, and most of the people, they were actually practicing alone in a cave or in a mountain or under a tree or somewhere where nobody else was around, so nobody could appreciate or clap at their performance. Perhaps the only things that saw these yogis practice were probably the wild animals that were going back and forth in their neighborhood. What were the yogis achieving while practicing these asanas? This is very important. The yogis were staying in the asanas. That's one of the definition of asana. Asa bhuvi, asa upaveshane. Something where you are resting, where you are staying. And what do you do when you are staying? In the old days, they were breathing, because they were directing energy into certain parts of the body. This is what we discussed in the Sutra 246 when we talked about the definitions of asana. I told you that they were breathing in the asana to move energy in certain parts. That's why the derivation of Prayatna is Prana Sahita Yatna. We have to do appropriate breathing while practicing asanas, so that by targeting the energy in certain parts of the body, the resistances in those parts of the body are giving way, so that there is fluid flow of energy in the system. That's why when we define the concept like this, Ācārya, Krishnamacharya defines it as Shwasa Uchwasa Gati Rupaha. This is Prayatna. Prayatna is defined as Shwasa Uchwasa Gati Rupaha. Shwasa refers to inhalation. Uchwasa refers to exhalation. It's very fascinating, because Uchwasa means that which elevates, and exhalation is considered the elevating breath, because in the yogic breathing, the inhalation is a downward direction from the chest region to the belly region. The exhalation is done from the belly region upwards. So that's why it's called Uchwasa, the upward movement of breath, elevating breath. So Shwasa Uchwasa Gati Rupaha. Its Gati means movement. Gati means movement. That's why in India there is a courier company called Gati, which means it is moving back and forth these parcels from one place to another. The same way, the movement of exhale and inhale is what is called, or inhale and exhale is what is called Shwasa Uchwasa Gati. Rupaha, in the form, in the nature of this. So that means the practice of asana must be in the form of the nature of breathing. That means we have to take the asanas with the appropriate breathing. That's why sometimes when we are doing forward bends, we are doing it on the exhale. When we are doing back arches, we are doing on the inhale, because it is consistent with the movement of the breath in these positions. So that's why there is appropriate breathing for appropriate asanas. And this is what is being referred to here, where when we say appropriate practice, it means practice with the appropriate breathing. Because if you remove the breathing from asana practice, asana is only an exercise. If you look at some people who are in the circus or who are practicing gymnastics, they can do all the asanas. They can stand on the hand, they can stand on their head, they can do shoulder stands so easily, much better than many yoga practitioners. But does it, just because they do that position, does it make that an asana? That's where the difference between an asana and an exercise is coming, or a posture is coming. That's why I don't usually translate asana as posture, because they are not the same. I like to keep the word asana as asana. I rarely like to translate that, because it changes the whole meaning of that. Because asana is posture with conscious regulation of breath. That's too long. So people cut it and say posture. And sometimes even posture is too long, they cut it and say pose. That's why everybody is posing in front of a camera to put it on Facebook and Instagram. So that's not asana. Asana is always with breathing. If you remove the breathing, there's no more energy or life in the asana. That's why Ācārya Krishnamacharya said, if you remove breath from asana, it becomes what is called jadasana. Jada means lifeless, a dead body, a corpse. Whereas when you include the appropriate breathing in the asana, it's called jita asana. That means you master the asana. You master it. Jita means to win, to have victory. You master the asana through the breath, not through the body. Please remember this, my friends, because body is changing all the time. When you are young, your body is one way. When you are in the young adult, the body is one way. When you are an older adult, the body is one way. When you are very senior citizen, the body is another way. But please remember, asana practice is not for one part of your life. It's for your whole life. Therefore, the focus is not on the body. The focus is on the breath, because that's the most important thing through which we can manipulate the body and how it experiences life. Breath is very, very key to asana practice, and that's why breath is referred to here as Prayatna, Prana Sahita Yatna. Don't forget the breathing. Don't forget the breathing. Even when you are sometimes in a position where you cannot bend forward, you cannot twist because you are sick and you are lying in bed, you can still do asana with simple movements combined with breathing. That becomes asana. Imagine a person who has a stroke and they cannot move anything below their neck. When you understand asana like how Patanjali has defined, even that person is fit to do asana as long as they are breathing. The only time they become unfit to do asana is when there is no breath. And when there is no breath, we don't have to worry about it because we are not really there when there is no breath. So that's not the time we can practice. We are disintegrating into nature once again. So this is very important. That is the concept of Prayatna. And the goal is very important. The goal is not achieving a form. The goal is not, oh, you have to do Shirshasana correctly, oh, Sarvangasana correctly. The goal is, if you consider a short-term goal, Shaitilyam, which is reduction of obstacles or a reduction of these resistances. But the long-term goal is always Sthiram and Sukham. The goal is not achievement of how a posture looks. Yogis always defined asana for a function. They were not bored and waiting in the forest and saying, oh, there's a dog looking up, let's do dog looking up. Oh, now the dog looking down, let's do dog looking down. They were not so bored. They always achieved these, they always inspired to create these asanas for achievement of a function, not a form. The form is only, they were worried about the breathing form, Shwasa, Uchwasa, Gati Rupa. That's what they were worried about. They are not worried about how the body looks. In fact, among the great yogis is a yogi called Ashtavakra. His name itself is an indication that today's times he would be called as a handicapped person, physically handicapped person, because Vakra means a defect and Ashta means 8. So Ashtavakra means he had 8 defects in the body. That means he could normally not do his body would not even be straight when he was sitting in Padmasana. Perhaps he could not even do Padmasana. But he is still valued as a yogi because the focus is not on the body, the focus is on the breath and what he can do with the breath, which is influence the mind. That we will come to when we do the Pranayama Sutra. That's why even asana is not for the body, it's for the mind. This is the first part, Prayatna Shithila. Don't forget to breathe appropriately when getting into and coming out of an asana. And don't forget to breathe while staying in the asana so that we can achieve the appropriate function. That is, short term it is Shaithilyam, in long term it is Sthiram and Sukham. That's the first part of this Sutra 247. The second part, Ananta Samapatti. This is even more fascinating. Ananta Samapatti. Samapatti is a word that has been used by Patanjali in the first chapter. Savitarka Samapatti, Nirvitarka Samapatti, Savichara Samapatti, Nirvichara Samapatti. He is using these words in the first chapter, the word called Samapatti, which is a synonym for Samadhi. It's a Samadhi of a lower type. It's one of the beginning level Samadhi, which is, for ease of translation, let us say it's like meditation, the first stages of meditation. So Patanjali is saying, while doing asana, you must meditate on Ananta. Meditate on Ananta. This is very fascinating in multiple layers of meaning. The first is in the Vedic mythology. Ananta is referring to the divine snake called Ananta or Adisesha, which is a very beautiful snake on which Lord Vishnu is resting. So the metaphor is so brilliant because in this image you will see that Lord Vishnu is resting on this snake called Ananta, who on the head has the world, the Bhumi where we are all living, Prithvi, the earth where we are all living. So Ananta is this giant snake on whose head the world is balancing on one side, and on the other side Lord Vishnu is resting. And Lord Vishnu is not alone. There is his wife also nearby. There is Brahma, the other god who is coming from the navel of Vishnu. There is Garuda, Vishnu's vehicle. There is all the Siddha Purushas who are standing by the side of Vishnu. So in one way, there's a lot of people. Now, what's our normal tendency when there are lots of people? We keep looking at them. It's even a hobby now, people watching. People go and sit in a coffee shop, they drink a coffee and they're watching people go by. This is our normal human tendency. To put it another way, we get distracted very easily by what's going around. Now, Ananta cannot get distracted because if he turns his head here and there, the world will turn here and there and we will all suffer. We will all suffer. So, therefore, he has to be steady. He has to be focused. He cannot be distracted. Especially, the snake and the eagle are enemies. Garuda is an eagle. The natural enemy of the eagle is a snake. So there is Garuda, the enemy in front, but he cannot be distracted. He has to be steady. That's one of his dharma. At the same time, he also has to not get nervous or tense, because if he gets nervous or tense, he will no more be a comfortable bed for Vishnu who is lying down. There are many women in our audience today. Many of you probably are mothers, and you may remember the time when your child was very, very little and you are carrying the child and the child is sleeping on you, on your shoulders, on your lap, on your belly. Now, you cannot be unsteady or nervous because it's no more comfortable bed for your child. It will wake up. It will start complaining, start crying. So the same way, Vishnu is resting on Ananta in his comfortable position. Ananta cannot be uncomfortable. Ananta has to be comfortable. So if you understand this, Ananta is a metaphor for or an example for Sthiram and Sukham. Metaphor for Sthiram and Sukham. Because he has to be focused, therefore steady, and at the same time comfortable. It's not one or the other. So what Patanjali is asking us to, while practicing asana, meditate on this Ananta so that you have Sthiram, you have Sukham. When you practice, otherwise you will get disturbed. Now, this is very, very phenomenal because this is making asana practice a meditation. Because he's asking us to meditate on Ananta while practicing asana. So you are no more focused on the body. That's the biggest blunder we are doing. And we are shaking our head like the distracted Ananta in especially modern yoga classes, because we are always comparing ourselves whether we are doing better or worse than the other people in the room. Oh, she's doing better than me. But it's okay because I'm better than that person. This is our distraction. No sthira. No sukha, because by looking at the person who is better than us, we are trying to push, or we want to impress our teacher, because then the teacher will graduate us from the beginner class to the intermediate class, which is like an Oscar award. And then we will graduate from the intermediate class to the advanced class, which is like winning the Nobel Prize, because then we are advancing in yoga. So we are pushing, we don't want to show our pain. Sukha is gone. That's why Patanjali is saying, don't worry about everything else, stay focused, stay comfortable. Not one or the other, both at the same time. This is one interpretation of Ananta Samapatti. The other interpretation is more fascinating for me, but some people may find it uncomfortable. Ananta literally means na antam anantam. It means that which has no limit or boundary. That which has no limit, no boundary. So what is that which has no limit, no boundary? It's not Prakriti, matter. Body is material, it has a boundary. This is my body, that is your body. There is a boundary. I belong to this country, I don't belong to another country, it's a boundary. I belong to a time. I was born in 1975, perhaps one day I will die. So I am bound by the time of my lifespan. There is a beginning, there is an end. This is boundary. Matter is bound by time. Purusha, on the other hand, is less bound by time. But still, Purusha is bound by time. Because Purusha has a date of creation. In the Upanishad, it says, Brahma vidapnoti param tadesha bhyukta satyam jnanam anantam brahma yo veda nitam guhayam parame vyoman soshnute sarvan kamansa brahmanaha vipaschitaha iti tasmadva etasmad atmana akasha sambhutaha. From the divine comes our consciousness, from consciousness comes space and other elements. That means there's somebody who created consciousness. That means consciousness has a date of manifestation. So it's not eternal, it's not limitless. So what's limitless is only one thing, that is the divine. In Vedic culture, we call it Paramatma. In maybe other cultures, you can call it with other names like God or universal consciousness, divine consciousness, however you want to relate with it. That which has no beginning, no end in terms of space or time. This phenomena called transcendence, not bound by anything that is limiting. Meditate on that. That's what this means. Ananta Samapatti means meditate on the divine. Oh, this makes it even more fascinating because in the Vedic concept, where is the divine? The divine is everywhere, but for a very practical purposes, the divine is actually inside our heart, nowhere else. We don't have to go anywhere. So when you practice, you meditate on the divine in your heart. Now this makes it so much more significant in how yoga should be understood and practiced, especially asana. This takes the practice of asana to a whole different dimension. Now, what is it called when you are meditating on the divine? It's a prayer. So asana is not a practice, it's a prayer. Why? Because in Vedic tradition we believe body is the temple. Because what's a temple? Temple is where the divine is. We have many temples in India. We have a church, we have a mosque. What's that place? It's a representative of, okay, here is the divine in this form. Therefore, this is a temple, this is a church, this is a mosque. But a place of where the divine is residing is considered a temple in whatever language you want to call it. Now, Vedic culture said the divine is in your body. That means this becomes a temple. Therefore, what you do with your body becomes not a practice but a prayer. So that's why Patanjali is saying, even asana, practice as a prayer. And that's why asana is not physical. It's a spiritual practice because you are doing it with the feeling of prayer. Because meditation, samapatti, the word, is not intellectual meditation, it's a feeling, it's a connection. So do it as if the practice is a prayer. That's why when you look at certain very old texts like Hatha Yoga Pradipika that define asanas, that talk about asanas, they always talk about how sacred the practice of asana is because it is a kind of a prayer. See, in those days, my dear friends, we talk about Patanjali's times. There was no literal temple that was easily accessible. Maybe there were one or two temples in the whole of India which we can say is so many years old. But it was not available at every corner like we have now. You walk in this street, in the corner there is a temple in this corner. You walk this side and just turn left, you have another temple in this corner. Today, we have temple in every corner, so we can just go to the temple. But in the old days, they had no physical temple. For them, this was the temple, because that is where God is residing in the heart. So for them, the way they honored the God was through practice as a prayer. So that's why asana is not at all something that you are doing with the body. You have to do it with this attitude where you are breathing and you are doing a practice. Now please remember, again metaphorically, what happens when you go to a temple? Normally, if you are a real true devotee, you can't really go to temple empty-handed. You have to take one flower or one fruit or something, one little glass of milk or something that you are offering to the divine. That is an offering. Then the priest will take that, do some mantras and place it at the feet of the God. But he won't stop there. He will bring something back from that divine's food that somebody else offered. Maybe somebody who came before you offered some flowers. So he'll take your flowers and put it in the God and then bring that flower that somebody else had brought and give it back to you as a prasada. That means what has been offered to the divine, he will give it back to you. Now, therefore, there is a concept of giving and receiving, or put it another way, offering and accepting. There's a two-way traffic. Now, the same we have to do with this temple when we are doing asana. What's that giving and receiving? Breathing. As you are inhaling, you are offering what is most precious to you. From God you are receiving what's most precious to the God. He is giving you the breath. As you are exhaling, you are offering to the divine, here is my breath, please take it. So there is this giving and receiving in the form of breath. That's why the first part, Prayatna, Shithila, refers to the breath. Ananta Samapatti refers to this prayer. Do it together. Ananta Samapatti Bhyam. The samasa in Sanskrit called Dvandva Samasa is a union of both. It's not one or the other. It's both. That's why the ending becomes Bhyam. Prayatna Shaitilyam, Ananta Samapatti. Bhyam is the linking of the two together. We see this in the first chapter also. Abhyasa Vairagya Bhyam. The grammar indicates that they both have to be done together. It's not Prayatna or Samapatti. It's both. And one feeds the other. One feeds the other. And that's why in traditional practice, when the priest is offering the flower to the God, or you are offering the flower to the God, if you are a very devoted person, you will recite some mantras. And when he is giving back the flower, he will recite some mantra that you live long, bless long, etc. You are blessed, etc. He'll give you back that flower. The same way, in traditional yoga, when we are inhaling and exhaling, we have to, because that is an offering to the divine, we have to recite mantra. That's why in traditional time, all practice was always called samantraka, inclusive of mantra, not excluding mantras. So even when you are inhaling and exhaling, you are supposed to recite the mantra through which you are relating to that divine in your heart. Now what mantra that you will be given by your teacher, appropriate to what is your circumstances in life. That's where the prayatna of what is appropriate for you comes in. If you are a vata dominant person, normally the teacher will not give you something that will disturb your vata even more. If you are a pitta dominant person, you have a tendency for fire, your teacher will not give you more pitta aggravating things. So that's where the appropriate mantra comes in, where you are initiated. Today, people want to go to Google and say, which mantra should I do? Somebody will tell you, okay, do this, somebody will tell you, and people just do whatever they want. That's very dangerous. So that's why asana is not even about the body. Asana is a spiritual practice as a prayer, not as a physical practice, as exercise. That's why it's a very bad thing today when people say, I want to stretch in my yoga class. That's not really yoga. You want to stretch, go to the gym, or go to the fashion store, because then people always want to wear tight clothes, and so they have to stretch their body to fit in. That's where you stretch. But in asana, you don't stretch. You are praying to that divine in your heart. That's why it's even transcending religion, because you don't even have to worry about which God. Because the God is in your heart. Don't worry about other gods. Hey, you go to another temple, you don't belong to my temple, and we start fighting. That fight is not there, because this is about our own divine in our heart. And that is why this very, very significant sutra, which is defining how we have to practice asana. And I think Patanjali is so smart. He's not allowing us to figure it out ourselves and do whatever we want. He's giving us a guide. Because if we practice like this, there will always be sthiram and sukham. So many of us, when you feel stressed, you go to a temple, the energy of the place relaxes you. You feel comfortable. So that's why if you go to that temple, which is in your heart, you will feel comfortable. That's very, very important. And please remember, when we talk about the heart in the yogic language, it's not the emotional place. That is still here. The emotional, you have to transcend that emotional space to go much more deeper to our light in the heart, what we call the Anahata Chakra, where the divine is residing in every one of us. And here it's very fascinating, because if you understand this way, there's nobody in this world who is excluded from that temple, because everyone carries their own temple. Some temples they say, oh, you know what, this person is not allowed, that person is not allowed, foreigners not allowed, non-Brahmins not allowed, non-Hindus not allowed. All that we don't need anymore, because we are all going to that temple which is very close to us, which is very easily accessible to us. And this way, it's very consistent with all the previous teachings that Patanjali is saying, which is yoga is an inward journey, not an outward journey. It's going back to our heart center, and that is reminded once again, even in the sutras that concern asana practice. This is the summary of the sutra. Prayatna Shithila Ananta Samapatti Bhyam. Namaste.